Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm going to go my review of AEW's Dynamite. Starting off tonight, we have an 8-man tag team matchup. It is Ricochet teaming up with Will Hobbs, Will Ospreay, and Mark Davis taking on the Don Callis family. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between both teams with Ricochet, Hobbs, Ospreay, and Davis keeping the pace of the match. Ospreay gets sent into Hobbs' knee into the step. Doctors then takes Hobbs to the back. Ospreay and Fletcher both exchange in the middle of the ring. Takeshita hits a Blue Thunder Bomb for a near fall. Hobbs then walks back out to the ring. Hobbs then hits a Power Slam on Archer. Davis then hits an enziguri on Takeshita in the middle of the ring. Ospreay hits a Standing Spanish Fly in the middle of the ring. But Takeshita hits a running knee, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are the Don Callis family. Moving on from that, we had the Hurt Syndicate. They were backstage via an interview by Renee Paquette. MVP announces that Lashley will compete in his first Dynamite match tonight. After he makes that announcement, Swerve attacks Bobby Lashley in the parking lot. Moving on from that, we have an Adam Cole segment. Adam Cole comes out to the ring, grabs a microphone. Adam talks about MJF. He praises Roderick Strong. O'Reilly comes out to the ring. O'Reilly grabs a microphone, talks about the history that he's had with Cole. O'Reilly tells Cole that he needs to stop this with MJF. And then O'Reilly tells Cole that he is a leader. Kind of interesting stuff there from O'Reilly. A lot of history there between Adam Cole and O'Reilly, especially their time as Undisputed Era. Moving on from that, we have our next match of the night. It's Shida taking on Chris Statlander. I thought it was a good match, back and forth matchup between Shida and Statlander, with Statlander keeping the pace of the match. Statlander hits a standing moonsault in the middle of the ring on Shida. Shida gets up, hits a Falcon Arrow on Statlander. Shida and Statlander both exchange in the middle of the ring, but Chris hits a Tombstone Piledriver on Shida. Pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Chris Statlander. After the match, Monet and Camille come out to the ring. Monet grabs a microphone, mocks Chris Statlander. Monet then tells Camille to get in the ring. Chris and Shida attack Camille, and then Statlander hits a Tombstone Piledriver on Monet in the middle of the ring. Moving on from that, we go to our next match of the night. It is Bobby Lashley making his in-ring AEW debut versus Joe Keys and Cheeseburger. This was a glorified squash match. Lashley was keeping the pace. Lashley hits a Dominator in the middle of the ring as well as a spear. Lashley then applies a Hurt Lock on Joe Keys. Referee sounds for the bell, and your winner of the match is Bobby Lashley. After the match, Swerve comes out to the ring. Swerve attacks Lashley from behind and then leaves the ring as the Hurt Syndicate help out Bobby Lashley. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Darby Allin versus Claudio Castagnoli. I thought it was a good match, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Allin and Castagnoli, with Allin keeping the pace of the match. Darby Allin hits a Code Red on Claudio Castagnoli for a near fall. Claudio then gets up, hits a giant swing on Darby, sending Darby into the steel steps. Claudio then hits a press slam standing on the announce table, sending Darby onto the timekeeper's table, and then Claudio hits a devastating lariat in the middle of the ring on Darby Allin, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Claudio Castagnoli. Moving on from that, we have MJF. MJF is shown on the Titantron. MJF talks about Roderick's family. He mocks Adam Cole. And then MJF talks about his matchup against Strong at Full Gear. After that, we have Roderick Strong. Roderick Strong comes out to the stage. He is greeted by Tony Schiavone. Strong says that I believe this should have been Cole. In my personal opinion, I thought the segment was actually kind of cringy, but Roderick talks about his family, and then Roderick talks about Full Gear. Me personally, I just think this whole Roderick Strong thing going up against MJF is a little rushed, and I will talk about that towards the end of the podcast. After that, we have a video package. Video package was played of Garcia attacking Jack Perry. I think this happened on Collision. Garcia attacks Perry. Perry then laughs at Garcia, and then Garcia attacks Perry's van. Moving on from that, we have Jericho and Ishii's contract signing for their matchup for the Ring of Honor World Championship. Again, I thought this was cringy. Jericho grabs the contract. He walks away from Ishii. Ishii follows Jericho. Jericho then signs a contract in the middle of the ring. Learning Tree attack Ishii. The Conglomeration come out to the ring. Conglomeration attack Learning Tree. And then Ishii finally signs the contract. Moving on from that, we have a Jamie Hayter segment. Jamie Hayter is interviewed backstage with Renee. Renee asks why Julia Hart interrupted Jamie Hayter's interview last week, and then all of a sudden, another Julia Hart video package is played, which I thought the video package was great, and it looks like Julia Hart is on her way back to AEW. Moving on from that, we go into the main event of AEW Dynamite. It is Wheeler Yuta versus Orange Cassidy. I thought it was a decent match, back and forth matchup between Yuta and Cassidy, with Yuta keeping the pace of the match. Orange Cassidy hits a stun dog millionaire on Wheeler Yuta in the middle of the ring. Yuta then hits a DDT off the apron on Orange Cassidy. Yuta and Orange Cassidy both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Yuta hitting an angle slam on Orange Cassidy. Yuta hits a tombstone on Orange for a near fall. Yuta then grabs a chair, but Orange hits a roll-up on Yuta, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Orange Cassidy. After the match, Pac comes out to the ring, attacks Orange Cassidy. Moxley is here as well. Death Riders attack Orange. The Death Riders end up taping up Orange's arms. Orange is trying to fight off the attack by doing his kicks on Moxley, but Moxley ends up pretty much knocking out Orange Cassidy. Couple things I want to talk about, man, when it pertains to Dynamite before I get out of here. And there's a lot to talk about, so. Number one, was it a good show? No. This was probably the worst go-home show, I can honestly say, for any AEW build-up towards the pay-per-view that has ever happened for AEW in the 5 years they've been around. There was a lot of things to really dissect from last night, not in a good way. Number one, let's look at the narrative of Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley came into the fold of AEW, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, when MVP announced Bobby Lashley. I don't know who the person behind the pen creatively who thought it was a great idea to showcase Bobby Lashley, 3 days before the Full Gear pay-per-view. Why don't we not wait to have Lashley debut at Full Gear when he has a marquee matchup against Swerve, a former AEW World Champion? And not only that, you're bringing Lashley into the fold in a 2-on-1 match against two guys that no one really knows who the hell they are, except for maybe Cheeseburger, which everybody was hyped up for Cheeseburger, considering he was a former Ring of Honor talent, and a guy named Joe Keys. It was awful. The match meant absolutely nothing at all towards the build-up towards Full Gear. At all. At all. The other thing I want to talk about, too, is Orange Cassidy. Now, obviously, this whole Jon Moxley storyline is going nowhere. To me, I think that whole storyline with Moxley and the Death Riders has run its course. The well has run dry. The story's not going anywhere, man. I mean, this whole thing with Moxley could have been... They really could have turned this into something. Pretty much chicken shit in the chicken salad, and right now it's still chicken shit. This storyline is abysmal, bro. This storyline for AEW right now means nothing. They dropped the ball. Tony Khan and Jon Moxley dropped the ball on this storyline 100%. This is going nowhere. You look at the matchup last night between Wheeler Yuta and Orange Cassidy in the main event of AEW, and they want to have a wrestling match, and then you see Orange Cassidy beat Wheeler Yuta. Then you see the Death Riders come out with Jon Moxley. They tape up Orange Cassidy's arm, and they all take turns beating the shit out of Orange Cassidy. So this is not going to make Orange Cassidy be believable enough for me, in my opinion, to be the guy that's going to dethrone Jon Moxley and be the savior of AEW. In my honest opinion, I think Jon Moxley, when it comes to Full Gear, is going to beat Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy's going to go once again back of the line, and no one's going to give a shit about Orange Cassidy. I genuinely believe that Orange Cassidy's not going to be the guy that's going to save AEW. And I believe that 100%. I don't think it's going to be Orange Cassidy. I think as time goes on, man, and I've told you guys this for the past few weeks, man. I feel like I've been saying it until I was blue in the face. AEW has become a chore. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, bro, why are you putting yourself through that? Why are you watching it? This is what I do. This is my job. This is what I do. And I love professional wrestling. But at the end of the day, you look at the 5-year stretch of AEW, from the very beginning until now. The entire mission statement of AEW, of what it once was until what it is now, is completely night and day. The tag team division for AEW is not there anymore. You got two guys that are one of the best tag teams of all time with Penta and Phoenix that are sitting on the shelf. Pretty much almost, I feel like it's deliberately at this point, because they want to leave AEW because they no longer want to compete in AEW anymore. The tag division's not there. I'm a big fan of FTR and Dax and Cash and what they've done. They are a phenomenal tag team, one of the greatest tag teams of all time, at least in this generation. But it's not the same FTR that we got the first, couple years that we're in AEW. It's just not the same. They're not getting pushed heavily anymore. It's just not there. The House of Black, again, is another stable that's just taking the back seat to AEW. Brody King, Malachi Black, and Buddy Matthews are not doing shit. I know they're in a tag team matchup at Full Gear. But I'll be honest, I'd be surprised if Private Party drops the belts in their first title defense at Full Gear. To be honest with you, because a lot of people in the back, a lot of the fans, were patiently and desperately waiting for Private Party to get their opportunity at the tag team belts. And now that they got it, I don't think the fans want to see them lose the belts on their first title defense being at Full Gear. The build up towards Full Gear is just, it's not there. I feel like the best thing they've done for Full Gear so far is actually Tony Khan buying the likeness rights or buying the song for November Rain from Guns N' Roses to hype up this show for Dynamite last night and obviously for Full Gear. That's it. That video package they played with November Rain from Guns N' Roses is probably the best build they have for Full Gear. Full Gear is going to be hard to watch, to be honest with you guys. And, you know, there's so many other podcasters out there that have said the same thing. And I got to say, I have to agree with them. You know, there's a lot of people out here, myself, you guys that listen to this podcast, people from all over the world that, you know, work their, you know, you guys are, you know, everybody's working their ass off to the bone, you know, and, you know, obviously things are not as cheap as they once used to be back in the day. We all know that. But it is hard, even for me, to contemplate spending $50 on a pay-per-view with the lack of build, with the lack of storyline leading up to this event. I think Full Gear is going to be probably one of the worst pay-per-views that AEW has ever put together. It feels rushed. It feels lazy. Lackadaisical booking. No storylines to truly be invested in really what the hell's going on here. And I'm sorry, but if you're one of those fans of AEW that genuinely think that this storyline right now that Jon Moxley's doing is one of the best storylines of all professional wrestling, you've lost your mind. You have I hate to say it, but you've lost your mind. It is one of the worst storylines ever. It is rinse and repeat exactly what the Elite did when they brought in Jack Perry after he was over in New Japan, and when Perry came back into the fold of AEW, and then the Elite and Jack Perry, well, Jack Perry, I would say, attacked Tony Khan, and that whole storyline went nowhere. It fell flat on its face. And it's the same thing here with this Moxley shit. They don't know how to build storylines. They don't. And trust me when I say this, there's a lot of news about AEW that's come out in the past few weeks that, again, we were going to touch base off here in a couple minutes, but I really wanted to talk about last night's Dynamite, man. Dynamite last night just was, you know, it was abysmal, man. It is becoming a chore, honestly, to watch AEW Dynamite. And I don't know what the fuck happened. I don't know if Tony Khan is the person that's writing solely for this show. I have no idea. But when you hear people like Kenny Omega, who's also, or is not, or used to be a VP of this company, and the CEO of this company telling everybody and telling the fans that, oh, everything is great. That's fucking bullshit. That if you're not naive to think that, you know, oh yeah, everything's great. Why? Because you guys got $550 million in a TV contract? You have people and fans leaving this company in droves. Mass quantity of fans leaving and watching WWE's product right now because AEW's product is shit. And that's just the bottom line of it, man. This company, the whole mission statement of this company was to be alternative. And unfortunately, the alternative right now is WWE. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I think what WWE is doing as a whole right now is incredible. The Bloodline storyline, Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, you know, obviously this, you know, Survivor Series coming up. I'm definitely looking forward to that. They know how to build story. You know, and people can say, oh, we're getting tired of this Bloodline shit. Oh, we're getting tired. How? It's the best storyline going in all professional wrestling right now. And it keeps getting better and better over time. Add in Jacob Fatu. Add in Tama Tonga Tongaloa. Add in Bronson Reed to Solo Sikoa's Bloodline. You know, who's going to be the fifth guy for Roman? Is it going to be CM Punk? Is it going to be Dwayne The Rock Johnson? Or is it going to be a wild card and being Brock Lesnar? There's a lot of unanswered questions leading up to Survivor Series. Where when you look at Full Gear, it's like, here it is. This is what we got. This is what we're giving the fans. And if you don't like it, piss off. And that's really what it is. And at the end of the day, I genuinely feel, as a fan of AEW, and I watched AEW from the very beginning, from their first show before they were AEW, when they had their first event, all the way up until now. And it's not the same, bro. It's not the same show. You know, Tony Khan saying, oh, the MVP of this year, well, I have to give it to Christian Cage. Wow. Of all of 2024. Wow. No talks about Swerve and what the fuck he's done in AEW and the great run that he had as AEW champion. Bryan Danielson. Come on, bro. Are you going to kiss Christian Cage's ass and say that, oh, yeah, he's the best, he's the MVP of 2024? Get the fuck out of here. Seriously. What has Cage done? When's the last time that you can say Cage has had a hell of a run so far? How many times have you seen Christian Cage in a singles match? Come on, bro. Get the fuck out of here. You know, I genuinely believe that Tony Khan unfortunately, is a guy that's self-sabotaging his own company. Really. I mean, let's look at the fucking narrative here, man. His father owns the Jacksonville Jaguars, okay? One of the worst teams in NFL history. Honestly. And I hate to break it to you if you're a Jaguars fan, but, let's call a spade a spade. The Jacksonville Jaguars are one of the worst NFL teams in NFL history. Seriously. And I can tell you this. I would say 9 out of 10 Jacksonville Jaguar fans, football fans, are probably hanging on to the glory days, and then they weren't really that many glory days, but probably the glory days of them when they had Mark Brunell as a quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Because at least at that one point, they were at least somewhat kind of relevant. Get the hell out of here, man. Tony Khan is self-sabotaging this company so bad where he's telling people everything is great. When underneath the surface, everything is fucking bad. This company has no direction, bro. This company has no direction, no emotion at all. At all. And in one part, and I hate saying this because it's just depressing, man. It's depressing to watch AEW Dynamite anymore. It really is. And I'm not the only one that's saying this shit. You have other podcasters that are up there in leagues of their own. And you know who they are. And I agree with them 110%. This company has no fucking direction. This company has no emotion. A lot of fans are leaving in droves. I've heard that being thrown around a lot. And I have to agree with those people that are saying that because it's the fucking truth. Who wants to watch Dynamite? And they can't even sell ticket sales, bro. You know, they had a thing last night on Dynamite where they're talking about, we got VIP packages for AEW's All In this year at the Texas Ranger Stadium. That's a baseball stadium, bro. You can't even fill 2,000 seats for a regular fucking Dynamite night. You know what I mean? It's like, you're going to fucking pack out Shea Stadium or some shit like that? Come on, man. Smaller arenas, which we're going to get into in a second because AEW has, like I said, has a lot of news coming out the past couple of weeks when it pertains to AEW. But again, man, it's just, AEW is just, it's not the same. It is hard to watch. And I feel as if ever since they signed that TV deal with Time Warner and Warner Media, Tony Khan just, he pumped the brakes, man. He's on autopilot. He don't give a shit no more. He don't. Tony Khan was trying to do everything in his power before the TV deal to get certain talents, to try to build somewhat decent storylines, to make appealing case for, a TV deal, again, with Time Warner. And now that he's got that deal, he's like, I got my money. I don't give a shit. He don't care, man. He does not care. This is a guy that's self-sabotaging his own company, that does not give a shit what the fans think. He doesn't care. He made his money. He doesn't care. And because he doesn't care, we're going to constantly get the same shit on Dynamite on a consistent basis. I mean, come on, bro. Joe Keys and Cheeseburger against Bobby Lashley? Come on, man. Seriously. With all due respect to Cheeseburger, I know who Cheeseburger is. He's a notable talent for Ring of Honor, but get the hell out of here. And like I said, the person who pulled the trigger on putting Bobby Lashley on TV last night, and not just waiting 3 goddamn days till we get the full gear to have Lashley debut against Swerve, is stupid. Why? What was the purpose of having Lashley debut in Reading, Pennsylvania, to debut in a match against 2 guys that really no one really knows or really gives a shit about? Joe Keys and Cheeseburger? Come on, man. Seriously. And I said the same thing about Ring of Honor since Tony Khan's bought it. He can say what he wants, but the Ring of Honor is dog shit, to be honest with you. It's a shit brand, man. It's not the same as it used to be. And the saddest thing is, you can sit here and say, you can blame the talent. No, you can't. AEW has some of the best talent in the world, which again, I will get into in a second on a possible another addition to that roster coming to AEW here probably in the next couple months. But you can't blame the roster, bro. You have to blame Tony Khan on this because he's the guy that has creative control in AEW. He's the guy that has the pen. What he writes is what goes out, what gets portrayed on TV. To be honest with you. The other thing I want to talk about, now that we get off the subject a little bit about how bad Dynamite was, there was an interview that took place from Kenny Omega, I believe it was SAP, a few days ago, where I believe Kenny Omega was asked, because obviously Kenny Omega's been over to New Japan and he's hyping up a return to New Japan, or have his first match back in New Japan and not AEW. So he was asked, Kenny Omega. Why is he not having his first match back in AEW rather than doing it over in New Japan? Omega's rebuttal was, well, they don't really need me over there. Everything is fine. Everything is great. He doesn't want to take time away or TV time away from other talent on the roster, and he has some unfinished business over in New Japan. I think that's a bunch of bullshit, to be honest with you. To me, it's a slap in the face to Tony Khan, the fact that Kenny Omega is going to have his first match back after being out for so long with diverticulitis, to be healthy enough to come back and wrestle, but not wrestle for the company that he built, but another company that he formerly used to wrestle for, being New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think it's a slap in the face to Tony Khan and then the fans of AEW and to AEW. And when I really, started looking into it, and I did, after the comments that were made by Kenny Omega, I really looked into it, and everybody's saying that AEW is so great. Everything's fine, everything's great, but I feel like underneath the surface, it's not. There's a lot of shit that's, I believe, going on behind the scenes with AEW that is slowly and surely starting to pour out, where fans are really starting to see really what the fuck is going on here. Kenny Omega, former VP, or still a VP of this company, a guy who helped build AEW from the ground up, literally. And the fact that he's not back in AEW, having his first match back in AEW, and then choosing to do it over New Japan, is saying a lot of shit. I genuinely believe that there's an issue backstage with AEW. There's some inner turmoil going on with AEW. I mean, and again, and I'm going to reiterate this, and again, I might be on the hill by myself, but just hear me out. The last time we seen the Young Bucks, they lost their belts to Private Party. Brandon Cutler gets attacked backstage by Jon Moxley and them. And then you see the Young Bucks have an interview with Marvez. I believe his name is Marvez. Saying that they're going to be working from home and taking some extensive time off away from the ring of AEW and staying home. Working from home, they said. Since then, we haven't seen Okada. We haven't seen the Bucks. The only person that we've seen out of the entire Elite so far is Jack Perry. They were supposed to build up a matchup here between Okada and Omega for Kenny Omega's return. Why are we not getting that? Why are we not getting an angle where, maybe the Elite are done with Okada, or Okada's done with the Elite, and Okada's going to do his own thing and then challenge Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks reunite with Kenny Omega once again? Why are we not getting that? Instead, we're getting Kenny Omega having a match at Wrestle Dynasty against, I forgot the guy's name. That, to me, the match makes no sense whatsoever. In my opinion, man, I just think there's an underlying issue with AEW that I think people are not really looking into, nor they understand. If you look at the fact that we haven't seen Ricky Starks at all. We haven't seen Miro at all. These are guys that, what I understand, are still under contract with AEW. We haven't seen them. Other than that, Ricky Starks is taking independent dates, bro. He's got another independent date here soon in January. So he's still wrestling. And Ricky Starks is not injured. I don't think he's getting a direction in AEW. So they're sitting him on the shelf. Tony Khan has no idea. And I think Tony Khan is also one of those guys that is a bitter, bitter man. And I think that he got pissed off from two different scenarios. Number one being Cody Rhodes. I think Cody Rhodes ultimately leaving AEW really pissed off Tony Khan. And how could it not? I mean, Cody Rhodes, his end of the tenure that he had with AEW, he was wrestling under no contract. It was pretty much a handshake deal. And then he left and went back to WWE. And you look at him now, and he's currently the Universal Champion for WWE. He's the flagship person, the spokesman for WWE. And he's done a hell of a job. Hell of a job. And I've said it multiple times. Tony Khan has to cringe every single time, or it has to piss him off every time he sees a SmackDown, or if he knows about SmackDown, seeing what Cody Rhodes is doing. Because Cody Rhodes is a superstar, man. And they dropped the ball with Cody. And then you look at a situation with Phil Brooks, a.k.a. CM Punk. Tony Khan invested a lot of money into CM Punk, bringing him into the fold of AEW, putting him back on TV, putting him back in a wrestling, capacity again. And then after all the shit happened with the Elite backstage, after I believe it was All Out, Tony Khan goes ahead and gets another show with the approval of TBS and Time Warner for CM Punk to have his own show, only to have an incident with Jack Perry that ultimately got CM Punk terminated from the company because Tony Khan had no choice. I feel like ever since Punk had left AEW, this company has gone to shit. Collision has been hurting. FTR not booked the same. Ricky Starks is not even booked on the show. Anybody that was affiliated with CM Punk are not being really, booked that well on the show anymore. Jack Perry had to leave after the incident and go over to New Japan. So, I mean, I think Tony Khan is bitter. And I think he's taking it out, his frustrations, on other talent. I do. I think he's self-sabotaging his own company because his own feelings got hurt because of the incident with CM Punk. Maybe possibly Cody Rhodes, because I know a lot of shit happened after the Cody Rhodes incident too. He put a lot of faith in Cody. He also put a lot of faith in CM Punk. Probably spent a lot of money to bring in a guy like Phil Brooks to be a part of AEW. So I know a lot of things change, and a lot of things have. I mean, obviously Collision is not the same as it once was when it was created and CM Punk was the flagship guy for that show. Once CM Punk was terminated from the company, Collision went downhill fast and in a hurry. So obviously things have changed a lot since CM Punk has left. And again, I mean, I can't necessarily blame him for leaving. I mean, obviously CM Punk got terminated, which I understand that. But if you look at what Phil Brooks has, done in WWE compared to AEW, it's vastly different. Same thing with Cody Rhodes, man. I mean, I just genuinely believe with this company, they don't care. They really don't. The other thing I want to talk about too, and it's been speculated, is another talent possibly coming over to AEW. Now, that talent that's been reported that be coming over to AEW probably sometime in January is none other than Speedball Mike Bailey. Now, if you guys don't know who Speedball Mike Bailey is, he is a former talent of TNA. He's had a great career over in TNA. He's had some great matches. Obviously, he has matches on the indies as well, PWG, stuff like that. He's a great talent. He's a young talent. He's a great talent. He'd be a great addition to AEW's roster. I believe his contract already went through with TNA. I think he has one more event with TNA that he's signed on for, and then he's done. And then I believe that the belief is that Speedball Mike Bailey is making his way over to AEW. I'm not against it. Now I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh my God, we're going to get another talent over to AEW. The roster's already bloated." Yeah, the roster for AEW as a whole is severely bloated, and I'm going to say the same thing then, and I'm going to say the same thing now. AEW needs to have a hard roster split. And if they're getting rid of Collision, or keeping Collision or whatever, there needs to be a hard roster split for the rosters. The roster's too huge. There's talent that can elevate Collision, and obviously there's talent that can elevate Dynamite as well. There's too much talent right now on the roster for AEW. There needs to be a hard roster split. So bringing in someone like Speedball Mike Bailey, I mean, I'm all for it as long as, we'll see how long he stays on the main event scene. Maybe, one or two times until he's pushed down to Rampage. Who knows, man? But I think, it's a good addition to the roster. But we'll see how it plays out for Speedball Mike Bailey. But it has been speculated that he is on his way over to AEW sometime relatively soon. But like I said, man, AEW, it's one of those things, and I hate sounding like a broken record. I really do. But it's becoming a chore to watch, man. And again, for myself and other fans that are fans of AEW, I got to tell you guys, man, like I told you guys earlier, man, this is one of the pay-per-views that it's really, really hard for me to make a decision on watching it, to be honest with you. And spending, you're, $50 on a pay-per-view that has no build and nothing that really interests you on the card, to be honest with you. I think Full Gear, I would not be surprised if Full Gear is one of the lowest selling pay-per-view buys in AEW history. I would not be shocked. There's no build towards this shit, man. There's no excitement around it. There's no emotion with this event. To get the fans invested, to really sink their teeth into it and be like, oh man, holy shit, we got another AEW pay-per-view. No, it's not like that at all. And again, I don't know what happened. I don't know what... to be honest with you, as a fan, I'm scared in the direction of AEW, of where they're going. To be honest with you. Because if this is the best that we're going to get, man, AEW's not going to last. And I've said that now for the past few weeks, past few months. If this is the best that we're going to get from AEW moving forward, this company's not going to last. Not at all. And there's going to be a lot more fans leaving AEW. The other thing I want to talk about with AEW that has been reported, and I think it's actually a great idea for once for AEW, is that AEW is looking to go in 2025, looking to book their AEW Dynamite shows, whether it be Collision or Dynamite or Rampage, looking to book these shows in smaller venues. Now, why is this a good deal? This is a great deal because due to the fact that they can't even sell, they're sold out arenas now. They're probably selling maybe anywhere from 1,800 to 2,500 tickets per arena for Dynamite. And one of the arenas or venues I would say they got was none other than the old ECW Stomping Grounds, the Hammerstein Ballroom. The Hammerstein Ballroom will showcase AEW Dynamite as well as Collision and I believe Rampage here relatively soon. I think this is a great deal for AEW. I will say that. I think that, having the idea of booking Dynamite and Collision in smaller venues, smaller arenas, where hopefully at that point they could pack out and sell out a venue small enough like the Hammerstein Ballroom or like the Manhattan Center or something like that, above the Hammerstein Ballroom where they used to have the old episodes of Monday Night Raw. I think it's a great thing for AEW. Get back to what brought you to the dance. And I've been saying that from day one, ever since AEW has been, declining in, ticket sales and pay-per-view buys and everything else like that. They need to go back to what brought them to the dance. And smaller venues really gets, more eyes on the product for AEW. It gives them a chance to sell out more crowds. And, the production should be a lot better with the fans alone being in smaller venues. And ticket sales will be great for AEW. I have full faith that AEW with smaller venues they can sell out. With venues like the Hammerstein Ballroom or where Raw used to be taped back in the day when they had the old Ico Pro logo back in the early days of Monday Night Raw. So I think doing smaller venues would be very beneficial for AEW moving forward. But again, man, I had to, like I said, at the end of the day, I am worried in the direction that AEW is going. It's not there. I don't know when we're going to see the Young Bucks come back. To me, at this point, if the Young Bucks want to come back as baby faces, then by all means go ahead. Because right now, something needs to change, man. This shit is not good. And if this is the pace that AEW is going and they're okay with it, I'm all for smaller venues. But if they're not going to build storylines or be a little bit creative, then it's, this company's going to fall flat on its face, man. This company's not going to last. They might run out their TV deal, maybe. But other than that, they might not pick them up after another, the next couple, few years after their contract's up. So there's a lot of things that AEW needs to change. If it's not, it's not going to work for AEW. It's really, really not. And unfortunately for people like Kenny Omega that are saying everything everything is great and not coming back to AEW, having your first match back since being injured with diverticulitis, I think it's a slap in the face to AEW and Tony Khan, to be honest with you. And it says a lot, man. It really, really does. Because when you look at the interview that, Omega had with Sapp, it looked like Omega was really watching what he was saying during that interview, where he really wanted to say what he really wanted to say, but he wanted to watch what he said in that interview. I think there's issues with AEW. And I think a lot of the issues are pointed towards Tony Khan. Maybe some of these guys that, made AEW are starting to see the writing on the wall. Being, maybe Matt and Nick Jackson are seeing it. Maybe Kenny Omega are seeing it. Or, you know what? Maybe they don't give a rat's ass what's going on as long as they're, collecting a check at this point. But this is not the mission statement that they brought to the fans. It's just not. And in my honest opinion, and this is going to be, before I get out of here, this is going to be probably one of my hottest takes for you guys today. I think Full Gear this year is probably going to be one of the worst AEW pay-per-views of the year, in my honest opinion. I just, the lack of build, the lack of storyline, I think it could be one of the worst AEW pay-per-views of all time. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but the way it's been looking as of late, it seems like, that will be true, and that Full Gear might be one of the worst pay-per-views for AEW this year, to be honest with you. And the way things are looking, yeah. But with that being said, this is my review of AEW Dynamite. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Pete Garrett